Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rockin' Beards podcast. It is episode 26, and we are actually doing a newer album this week. Back to that. It's your boy HSR, and with me tonight is
What up? Syd.
And Jay had a family emergency, so he could not be here. He'll be back in the next weeks and stuff. Syd, since you were very excited for this, why don't you tell us what album it is?
We are doing the brand new Queens of the Stone Age album. I have loved this band for a very long time, and I have watched them grow as a father watches a child grow from the beginning of their career. Saw them live in 2007. Can I say that? 2007.
I guess so.
On the Era Vulgaris tour. Was still one of the best shows I've ever seen. Like Clockwork, another stellar album, and now this one, they just keep up in the ante every time. So yeah, Josh Homme, well done.
Right. I know that they exist. I know that Dave Grohl drummed for them and was not the drummer on this album. I know that they're rockish and that a lot of people really fucking like them, which as a music reviewer always makes me nervous going into that. But I was excited because I'd never really given them a fair chance at any point to actually put on this album. So I got nothing more to contribute on Queens of the Stone Age. To me, they were like one of those names, and now they're a band. And I'm going to discuss how I feel throughout the course of these songs. Yeah, but in my like imaginations and shit. But yeah, I don't know. I think they're interesting. I look forward to getting into it. What did you think of the title Villains?
I like it. I dig it a lot. It's very simple. It's catchy. I like the cover too. It's
Is that what it is? Is that like him that's covering?
That's him, yeah.
Because it kind of looks a bit like James Dean or like one of those old greaser bad boys.
He has that look. Right. He has that look. He's got a very, like, his hair is always slicked back.
Okay.
He's always got a leather jacket on. Or not always, but, you know, he tends to have that grease kind of like...
Yeah, greasers.
Side Story, like...
Aren't they called greasers?
I guess, sure.
And then you got the devil, the cliche old school devil covering his eyes with his hands, and
then his hands are his eyes, and he's kind of like seeing the world through the eyes of the villains.
And I really appreciate the idea of what he's putting forth on this album. It's almost like he's a neutral observer, like just looking at the world through a shade.
And that's kind of always what he's been throughout their discography. Is just kind of a guy who writes his own songs. Like his sound has never really changed to the same level that it's changed drastically, if that makes any sense. Like, yes. It always sounds like Queens of the Stone Age, but he always has a slightly different lineup.
So it's kind of like he's the band and whoever else is there is just play. Like, does he write everything?
He pretty much writes everything. Fun fact, this album was produced by Mark Ronson.
Yes, we were very excited for that.
I am very excited for that. Uptown Funk was my favorite song of that summer, and probably the summer after, too.
It was one of those songs.
That other song that he did with Lily Allen, the song that he did with Mystical. Just a great songwriter, great producer, and he really shines through on this record too. And I mean, it's not to take anything away from Queens of the Stone Age, because it does very much sound like a Queens of the Stone Age record. It's very murky. It's very jam heavy. It's not simple music. It's not for your fan of radio pop, but at the same time, it's still very catchy and it's still very appealing to, I guess, a wider audience. And that's kind of what they do. They float above the trends, but at the same time, they adapt them sparingly.
I feel like they understand. Like, to just add to it, I guess they're true masters of like seeing what is happening across the spectrums and not like falling to it exactly like you were saying. Like they just cherry pick the best parts of it, but then don't conform their sound. It's almost like what it really made me think of was like a better version of something like Arcade Fire, but because it was like a more vast wealth of source it was drawing from, and it wasn't so limited to like particular sounds.
And I think what's cool about versus someone like the Arcade Fire is that Queens of the Stone Age don't really do it in a pretentious, like, I'm telling you this because you need to change your ways kind of way. Because I think Josh Homme really understands being the everyman and having that cynical point of view and having that, like, drudging through life every day and everyone is stupid, but, like, I empathize with that kind of thing, as opposed to, like, this is how you should be doing it, which is...
He's almost just trying to tell stories of what he's seen along the way, whereas the other bands, even like Broken Social Scene, we reviewed them as well. I don't know if you were there for that one.
I was, yeah.
But it was, again, a lot more of this ethical tone of like, this is the right way to live. And I guess we'll get into the lyrics as we go on it, but the tone of the album was more of a journalist just kind of watching and speaking, leaving you to interpret what you want. And I was really impressed by that, especially just to tie it into the villains and the cover. But yeah, let's say we get into it then.
Yeah, I mean, let's go. Feet Don't Fail Me Now.
I gotta say, this was a very pleasant like thing to come into blind, right? Like, we've had quite a few bad blind experiences, or like it's often like you have to kind of look or reach to find out why the band is good. Nope, this gets in your face. Like, the intro is long. And I want to say this because my mark's not a 5, so it bothered me a bit because it's really almost 2 minutes before the song like picks in, and that has kind of like a hit or miss effect depending on my mood, right? And it's very mood specific. So when I listen to it, sometimes it would feel good, other times it wouldn't. But then you hear that and that funky bass line just kicks in, and the whole song just comes to life. And it's good. It is really good from that point on. And then you get to that weird bridge in the middle. Didn't really like the sound of the bridge. It kind of felt like it was trying a little too hard. And it broke the vibe. It broke the illusion of the song a bit. Even the intro held the illusion. But now the illusion got broken. And then it ends strong. I like how it ends. And that would be my synopsis of this. Like, there's so much music happening, and it's so, like, everything is so well made that it's hard for me to even understand the flaw in the actual instrumentation. It was fun.
It's definitely a fun track. It's dense, like most of what they do. It's very dense. You said to me this morning that it takes multiple listens
Yes.
for a lot of these tracks to sink in, and that is very much what they do. Yeah, I feel the same way about the intro. I felt like it was a little long, and especially from a band that, like, this band has some of my favorite album openers, period. Like the album, the opener for Songs for the Deaf. You think I Ain't Worth a Dollar, but I Feel Like a Millionaire. They start off with this fake radio show, and it's great. It spoofs radio from every decade. It's not, it's still relevant to this day, and then it goes into this heavy as hell punky kind of speed metal track. A song like Turning on the Screw from Era Vulgaris just right away just kicks your ass. And this song, while it's super funky and it's super bouncy, I felt like it just didn't quite measure up to some of those other openers, just because they're so stellar and so spot on.
I just gotta throw in though, I feel like it was meant for a live performance, straight up. I don't know. Like, you're supposed to dance when you hear this song.
Definitely
which
very dancey track.
Is the crux of the lyrics almost. Like, with through the music you'll find salvation, right? It's like he has faith in music and he does this, and it almost like he criticizes his age a little bit in this. Like, I'm kind of old. Like, should I really still be doing this? But no. I have faith that through music all things will be better, and we should all just kind of dance. So it's almost like it's not the first time I've heard this concept this year of trying to bring back, let's use music as like the big universal come togetherness.
Yeah.
And I think from like a messaging point of view, it's a really good start to the album lyrically. I like it actually. Like, it, from what I understand, he's paying homage to Iggy Pop, and I don't.
You know that he did a record with Iggy Pop a couple years ago. It's called Post Pop Depression.
But I did know, on a side note, that Iggy Pop did a record with Iggy Azalea. So Iggy Pop is kind of floating around, is what I've seen.
But I'm saying these two did an entire album together.
Oh, like a whole album?
A whole album. It's called Post Pop Depression. It is super heavy. It's long as hell. Check it out, though. It's good.
I'm curious. Iggy Pop's kind of one of those names I've been meaning to listen to for a long time, and I've just never gotten around to it. And I like the idea of like so directly drawing influence from an older sound from what I understand the song he's referencing is about the same thing. And I like that idea, and I like the feel of this track. I give it a 4.
Yeah, I give this a 4 as well, because it's not a bad song by any stretch of the imagination. It's really, really good. It's really funky. It's really bouncy.
But when you are out of the box with experimentation mode like that, sometimes it's perfect. And then sometimes it's bad. And this is kind of in the middle. Most of this song is great, But there's just a couple little bits here and there where it's like I kind of wish it didn't sound like that. Even though like lyrically this shit's too dense for me to dissect this quickly. It was well made poetry, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it doesn't hit for me in context as hard as some of their other album openers, and that's the only reason it doesn't get a perfect for me. Plus the fact that the intro I felt you almost doze off. You space away, and then you come back and you realize, oh, there's music happening.
It gets a little chanty, and it gets a little bit of a build-up. I get, like, the kind of... It's almost like... I don't know if I'm supposed to close my eyes and picture scenery, but if I'm to do that, I'm picturing some kind of almost Games of Thrones-ish, landscapey type stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm in the club dancing.
Okay, we don't need to talk about Games of Thrones.
No, I don't even watch the show, but I'm trying to convey the imagery I'm going for, like the New Zealand landscape, you know?
I'm just saying, let's just get back to music the way we used to do.
I don't know if you knew this, but they recorded the song live.
Okay.
And left all the imperfections in on purpose.
There were imperfections?
I know, that was what I said. But yes, when you listen to it, it feels human. Like if you really compare it to some of the more polished songs on the album, right?
Sure, okay.
It's kind of got more of a like you're in the room with them and they're actually doing this in front of you feel to it. It doesn't sound live per se, but the energy it's conveying. And I don't know the imperfections that are there, but I'm certain just like a little bit of off-timiness, maybe slightly, wrongness, just stuff that didn't get polished or cleaned up in the mix. And it says a lot to them as artists and musicians as if they're that polished with no corrections done. But like, damn, it was just fun. This is, from what I understand, to be like a hybrid of like swing and rock.
Yeah.
And I love it because I close my eyes while listening to this and I could picture those times I tried out swing dancing lessons and just the general vibe of it. But then I could also picture the mosh pit and having a fucking great time in there.
Yeah.
And it hit to me. It was cheesy.
They sometimes they remind me of Muse.
Okay.
In that, songs like Uprising or songs that just kind of like really capture that dark rock vibe but still make you want to put on a pair of tap shoes and just get out there and like do a little jig. I mean,
yeah,
this is me doing a little jig. And what I really, really love, and it's so great on this track, is the way those little guitar slides just catch your ear and they weave in and out of each other, and that's like those hidden little hooks.
Okay.
That are so important in pop music that people just don't pay attention to or don't understand that's what's bringing them in. I mean the vocal hook is great, but the way that their guitar melodies just weave in and out and around each other. There are so few other bands that are capable of doing that to this extent, to the natural and human level that Queens of the Stone Age almost always managed to do it, and this song exemplifies it perfectly. This one gets a 5 from me.
I give it a 4.5. I don't think it's like the great like. I'm trying not to give 5s out to every great song I hear because it almost devalues the power of a 5. So great song, it's like 4.5.
I'm just gonna sit here and be a fanboy.
That's okay. I love the construction, but the lyrics, it's cheesy, right? It's a cute little love song about his wife, like how he met her and whatnot, and I get it, and it's fun and it's airy, and I feel like all this song is meant to do is to make me get up and dance, and it accomplishes that goal extremely well.
Right? Like, but doesn't it just accomplish it so perfectly that it when they set out to do something with a song, they do it.
Agreed. But then my, like, part of the reviewing grade is my subjective opinion of the shit that I feel when I hear it. And it's like, I want to give, like, a 5 to something that, like, no matter what, I can feel that track. And this is very much, it makes me kind of want to dance, but if I don't want to dance, I'm also not going to listen to the song. Versus if I'm in a mood to dance, I'm like, all right, let's go do this. I might go grab the lady.
But if it comes on, first off, are you gonna switch it because you just plussed it, right? So this will come on.
Because I want to hear it sometimes.
And when it comes on, if it's in the background, do you not think that your body's just gonna automatically start doing like
this is the kind of song I want to come on while I'm doing dishes or if I'm biking to work or in certain contexts. But like if I'm sitting on a bus as an example, I do not want to hear this song. I want to be able to move when I hear this song.
Just jostle the guy next to you. Just get out of the way, man.
Still, it's not. It's not like
happening.
It's excellently made. It's just there are also other better songs maybe I would go listen to for the sake of accomplishing this goal, and it's no detriment to this sound. His voice is not my favorite voice, and I want to throw that out there now. As a singer, he is really good and talented, but sometimes a good and talented singer sings in a way you're not the biggest fan of. And
fair enough. I have a friend who doesn't like Michael Jackson's voice. Gets me every time she says it. I'm just like,
I like his voice. I actually can handle him. There's something about his charm, but I could also see how there are other voices that are more fun. And I know that some people take the Michael Jackson fanboy thing to the next level, so I don't want to push that point. But his voice isn't great on this one to a point of earning the 5. And I'm going to isolate it on there for the people out there because the music is flawless.
But with them, it's like he's not giving a vocal performance to be like he's not an Aretha Franklin or he's a singer to suit the music.
By now everybody knows that I focus a lot on the lyrics and the voice and this is one of my drawing points to perfection, and you'll notice there is at least one 5 on this album. When we get there, you're gonna be like, okay, this part of it.
Spoiler alert.
But anyway.
So I'll throw this out there then for those of you watching or listening who may only, or not only, but that's your main thing. You listen to music specifically for the voice, or you want to hear a powerful voice with a lot of runs and a lot of whatever. Queens of the Stone Age is probably not the band for you.
But the music, as a guy who maybe doesn't go as much for the music, it's so exceptionally stellar that I plus this song.
Awesome. For all you other domesticated animals out there.
Yeah, run it. This song is really cool. Lyrically, it's strong. It's kind of criticizing conformity. I mean, it's not really anything more than that. It really goes in depth in multiple examples of conformity kind of lifestyle, and it's good. It really shows him as a journalist watching. He doesn't do it in a critical way like you were saying earlier. It's more of just, this is what I've noticed. I'm going to put it down in a song. But then the music's actually really interesting. It's got a good, weird feel. It starts off real slow, and then it just kind of builds, and it builds, and it builds, and it gets elaborate and exciting. And it's almost like a fun theatrical experience listening to this song as it gets more intense. And with the name and the idea behind it, it really fits. It's fun.
Yeah, it's this reminds me of another one of my favorite Queens of the Stone Age tracks, From Era Vulgaris, which, again, spoiler alert, is probably my favorite Queens of the Stone Age album. So for all you Quotza fans out there hating me for saying that,
is that what it is? Quotza? Oh, yeah.
Going to hate.
Do they call themselves Quotza fans?
Yeah.
Okay.
I call them that, but yeah, it's very similar to I'm Designer from that album. Very similar feel. Just another great track. Just a really offbeat rhythm. And this one, some Middle Eastern vibes sneaking in a little bit in the guitar a little later on in the song. And yeah, love the way it builds. Not too much else to say. This is another straight 5 for me.
This one, I give it a 4.5. It's really you know what it is? For me, this is not my favorite genre of music, right? So yeah. I'm appreciating it more than I'm necessarily, and I plussed it again because if I was gonna get into this genre of music and get more into, let's say, the more complicated and I guess over the top side of rock, this is a great song to introduce somebody to. This album is a great gateway album.
Yeah.
I don't know if they get better or worse for their old stuff, but just to rock music in general, I was enthralled with this song. I was put into it, and it's got a good charm to it. I just don't know if the charm is going to last over time, or if it's one of those songs where I'm going to listen to it and it sounds really amazing up front, but then in 3-4 months, I feel like I'm going to phase this one out a little quicker than say something like The Way You Used to Do, which has that, it's almost like a timeless feel to it where it's so good. So for me...
Well, okay, so I'm coming at this from the context of I already know this is going to make my top 10 albums of the year,
right.
Probably top 5, and realistically top 2. And I'm thinking about when their last album came out, Like Clockwork, and I'm still, they're Keep Your Eyes Peeled, My God Is the Sun, I Appear Missing, Fairweather Friends. There are still so many tracks on that album. This is I don't remember whether it was 2011 to 2012 it came out, but this album, it's been a while, and it's still to this day I can still, and you go back older. I mean, Go With The Flow.
But like I would never go back to it. Like something like Go With The Flow, I'd never go put that song on again. Not because it's bad. I mean, personally, I wouldn't go for
Threes
it.
and Sevens, Little Sister. There's one that First It Giveth, Feel Good, Hit of the Summer, and every one of their albums, they've never disappointed, and there's always been so much hype. And this is one of those rare times, like Queens of the Stone Age are one of those rare artists, whatever media bodies that you're encompassing, visual art, movies, where the release matches the hype. You know what I mean? Like Avengers 2 came out and that didn't match the hype.
Right.
It just
to be fair, I gave this a 4.5 on 5. I don't want to say like I gave it a bad mark. I just don't think it's a perfect song. I think it's a really amazing song. I think it's something I could listen to when I feel like zoning out. So like as an album, this album is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting on the album. I don't think it's bad by any means. I think this actually might make my top 10 albums of the year as well. Already saying that we're 3 tracks in. There's almost nothing wrong with it. It's just the sound is still the sound, and for me, it's sometimes hard to get past that.
That's it. They have their sound, and it's a little lighter. It's a little more whimsical, if you will.
It's also there's nothing simple about this. It's all dense. It's like dense. Eating a really heavy cake. Sometimes you want that cake, but then sometimes you look at that piece of cake and you're like, I don't know if I can stomach it right now. And that's how I feel about this.
It's like an onion, donkey. And onions have layers.
Listen.
And this album has layers.
It really does. And I think that's part of why. Like, as an album, I would put this on and listen to it, like, all the way through and not skip a single song. But when we're talking about it at the song-by-song level, I don't know if this track came on random that I'm going to, like, play it through every single time.
I can see that. But what's cool for me, we've been talking the last few weeks about the art of the album,
right?
And about how to make that flow. And we review albums and we're like, oh, this track should have gone here. It would have been better here. And Queens of the Stone Age again always managed to have that perfect track list where the album works so well as one unified piece of music. And
I'm going to agree with you that the congruency of these 3 songs is good. I feel like considering that I like the start of the album. I like how it started with that first track, even if other albums had stronger starts. And I feel like it wasn't too strong, and then they've kind of led you into the more complicated stuff.
Yeah.
And then I guess next up we've got the Fortress track. Did you like this one, Syd?
I did. I liked it. One thing I will say is that they do have a tendency to make certain songs, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not even saying most of them, but certain songs tend to go on a little long. Especially, I mean, you look at something from their last album like The Vampire of Time and Memory, and that song merits its long run time, and it's a slow, doomy, gothic kind of piano led ballad. And this one, while it's super jammy and musicians are gonna eat this up, I don't know. I felt like it could have been a little shorter. That said, I really do enjoy that 60s kind of spacey vibe. You almost picture, Smash Mouth?
Yeah, of course.
You know the cover of Astro Lounge?
I think so.
Like, that's what I picture when I hear this song, and I feel like this song fits the mood of that album cover better than a lot of that album does.
Okay.
So yeah, this look, I'm not going to give it lower than a 4.5. It gets a 4.5 because it's still awesome. And it's super downbeat, and it's super well placed too, right? Track 4 after like 3 nice big rock bangers that were still pretty different, but were a lot more energetic, and this one tones it down subtly and tastefully.
It's got like an interesting mix of emotions happening on this song. Like, it's almost like you're a teenager again. Lyrically, it's like kind of describing, I think he said this in an interview, but it's like going back to that point where when you're young, you feel like the need to hide behind your mask and create like this fortress around you. Like, I remember in my earlier dating life, every girl would be like, I've got my walls up and they're so hard to get around. And I'm like, it's kind of this idea, this fortress you put around. And it's almost like one of those just observational tracks. Again, like the whole album, observational tracks. And it just kind of exploring that series. And it's got like this gloomy verses, like Like, it's not gonna work. Like, things are kind of like, it's got like this more morose tone to it.
Yeah.
But that chorus just it's eerie, and it's not necessarily happy, but you're mixing it with this like upliftingness and this hope, and like you feel like even though like shit is fucked up. I know we haven't sworn a lot over that stuff, but that's the best way to describe it. So that's the best way to describe it with those words. It will get better, and I feel like it really conveys that energy, but it is 5.5 minutes long, and it is not like there's no dancing here. There's no like fun energy or anything like that. It's kind of like you're almost supposed to just like, I guess, be pensive. Like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to feel to this song exactly as a 29-year-old person, right? That's where I am having trouble connecting with, I guess, the energy of it, albeit it is a really good song, and I suppose in my more melancholy, sad mornings, I might really find a good place for this. But for me, this is a before coffee song, and I don't know that I would listen to it once coffee hit my system and I got back my like chipper self, you know?
It's definitely got a very specific mood.
So I give it a 4. I think it's really well made for what it is, but it almost feels a little more limiting or juvenile compared to the previous 3 that I've heard. So it's hard to like really say a lot more about it than that. I don't know. Good song, good enough.
I don't know how I feel about juvenile as a descriptor. I feel like their music.
I'm saying like from
the music is so mature. It's so mature.
Well, like, we're not talking about like the music, as in like when I say like juvenile, I mean again the lyrical side of it, like what my feelings hearing it as a person, because I can't like separate it entirely. For me, like the music itself is kind of like the beat.
Yeah.
Right. And all of it is one of the. There's no bad beat on this album. Like, that's if you want to put it like that. But then the other part of what makes it a song is still that lyrical side, that energy he's bringing. He's taking the raw emotion of the music and adding a particular context to it, right? So I don't want to ignore that ever in a review. And I know that a lot of the rock guys are like, it's never about the lyrics. It's not about the singing. Just listen to the music.
Like, it's about the lyrics. You can't.
So I can't ignore it is all I'm trying to say. And I'm not trying to say it's poor songwriting. It's excellent songwriting. But I found the tone to be more of a juvenile, harder to connect to. Like, there's less for me here than any other song on the album.
Fair enough. But what I will say though is that, you know, this track is very effects heavy in terms of the guitar. Really key, and you look at his pedal board, and I'm sure it's like, you know what I mean, like huge.
I can kind of imagine it.
Pedals.
Never used a pedal.
What's great about this music is that even though it's produced very cleanly, almost to the point of it sounding like candy, it still sounds very natural. You can still hear the emotion in the way he plays, in the way they play. You can still hear the tightness, and you can hear the communication between the band, which is another. It's very difficult to capture that on a record, and even more difficult now with all of the technology we have versus back in the 60s, back in the 70s, when bands were recording live off the floor and just kind of hoping that take stuck. Right. Otherwise, you got to take a physical tape and cut it and splice it.
Oh my gosh.
You don't have to do that anymore, and so it's a lot easier to just kind of go into the studio and cut and paste, and everything sounds prim and proper. But Queens of the Stone Age always managed to sound like a band playing a song, even with all the production, even with all the effects, even with all of the bells and whistles thrown on top of it. So that's really cool, and this song does that very well.
All right, so I guess maybe he has a head like a haunted house.
What a great track.
This is definitely by far my favorite song on the album.
Super fun, and what I really, really, really appreciate is that, you know, it comes after this really, really down tempo, very, very, very moody track, and it's not you know, they're both very dense, but this one is just so much more immediate, and to have that kind of flip side, one right after the other, is just it's a genius piece of song placement.
It's also, like, by a significant measure, the shortest song on the album, and it's the exact middle point, because this one's 9 tracks, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel cheated on 9 songs. Sometimes that feels like you're cheated. No, they backed it up with all their fucking plus 5-minute songs.
Yeah, they backed it up, and every song feels like it fits. There's not one that should have been taken out, or everyone has had its attention paid to it. They've tweaked it to to perfection. Everything is
This really does feel like any of the other songs on this album, but just played at double time, which often is, I guess, kind of how punk works out, right? It's just a lot of the rock stuff played faster and more aggressively. So if this were to be played, let's say at half the speed, I feel like it could feel like any of the other tracks so far.
fair enough. This to me feels a lot more garage rocky, a lot more raw than some of the other songs. And what I really 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 appreciate is that, say what you want about Josh Homme as a singer, or
I liked him as a punk singer.
but yeah, what he does very very well is, he carries that falsetto like where any other singer or lyricist or writer would let that melody drop. In the chorus, he adds it, do, you know what I mean? He brings it to the next level, and he keeps you in it.
And like lyrically, it's interesting. Fun fact: your first F-bomb appears on this album in this chorus. And I just noticed it, right? Because the tone gets more aggressive, and he's not like necessarily safe with lyrics, but previous to this, you would have thought maybe a little bit he's a safe lyricist, and that changes the tone for the rest of the album too. He gets a little darker and a little more explicit, not necessarily with swearing, but just with what he's saying. And and if you consider this track is kind of like a messed up person's head, like I guess it's the girl he's going after, and he's in her head, and he's just describing the different coping mechanisms, just the general psychoticness of what's going on in this person's mind, and it's expressed through the chaos of the music effectively. And honestly, to me, this is a true fucking masterpiece. It's a 5. It is like I said, it's my favorite track on this album. It's quick lyrics, it's dense. You know what? It's more rappy in its delivery, less singy. And it made me like it more. Like,
Maybe, yeah.
If this guy spit rhymes on every track, maybe I'd be giving out more 5s, is all I'm trying to say. I know that the entire rock community might disagree with me, but that's my 2 cents. I happen to like that combination and over that style of music, and it works well. Like, guys like Rancid basically rap in a lot of songs, so I'm not like...
It's interesting that you would, you're bringing up swearing, and you're bringing up this is the first F-bomb on the record, and talking about lyrics almost being safe. There's a couple of opinions on swearing, just in rock music in general, that I wanted to bring up. First off, Marilyn Manson, who swears everywhere, all over his discography all the time, but he never swears when he speaks, because for him it's a much more, you get that visceral reaction to the art when there's swearing in it. But someone else like Corey Taylor from Slipknot, whose first 2 albums are full of swearing. And then he kind of got accused of relying on it too much as a crutch, and he came to the realization that if you use it more sparingly, it's more effective than if you're using it all the time. People almost become numb to it. Like in a lot of hip hop, and especially in not necessarily subpar hip hop, because Eminem swears all the time. But
Eminem almost always swears with a reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of artists that rely on swear words for that shock value.
I think there's a distinction, right? And it's worth noting. There's people who swear for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And then there's people who swear while showcasing a vocabulary that you don't even have.
Yeah, exactly. And on an album like this, where it comes in on the 5th track, and it's 1, and it drops, and you hear it, and it's a really exciting track, really, really almost animalistic in its delivery. Like you feel that impact.
Like he's no longer a domesticated animal.
Yeah, now he's something has landed.
Feral animal, we'll call it. No, but I get into this conversation a lot, right? Because I write lyrics and I swear. If I come up with the line and it's swearing, I'm going to like it with the swearing. However, I have entire songs where, like, I don't know, maybe 200-300 words might appear in the song, and there's like 1 swear word, and then sometimes it's a lot about the emotion you're trying to capture, and I feel like it's true that every line with a cuss word could be rewritten in a way that doesn't have the cuss word and probably still give the same impact. But to that, and I don't know how else to say this with the same impact, but I call bullshit. Because sometimes swearing actually has exactly the impact that you're going for. And I swear a lot in my regular life. This trying not to for the podcast will be a challenge, and I will work on it, but it is what might be necessary. However, I think that if you listen to me speak, I almost come off like a hyper intelligent, condescending douchebag. So it doesn't sound like
I'm so happy you finished it off with condescending douchebag.
Right.
It's like I come off as a hyper intelligent, condescending douchebag.
Right. Like I'm not saying that I come off like, I know you guys do call me out sometimes in these comments, so I understand the image of what I give off. But I don't think anyone's going to be like, he swears because he can't phrase it differently, you know? And so when you look at it like that, I think that every song in this album has shown a high level of intellect in the writing. And had he sworn on every song, to me it wouldn't have felt out of place. Whereas one of my criticisms of Kesha's Rainbow album is that certain tracks, it felt like the only differentiating factor was that she swears. She's the version of that pop that cusses indiscriminately. Certain tracks. Not all of it. But at least the opening song on that album was just full of cuss words, and it was the most noticeable thing, just to show a contrast, you know?
That's fair. And I mean, these guys, they don't, I don't think they sit back and look at their past albums and go, what have we not done? What have we done? What can we do here to gauge reaction? I think they just kind of let the music flow naturally from where they are now. And in that sense, they are never on any album not Un-Reborn Again.
Yo, so we go from like the shortest, densest, coolest song on the album, and I'm saying that because it was my favorite, not because anything's uncool, to this interesting...
Did I grade that last song? Did I give it a 5? It was a 5.
Yeah, he gave it a 5 if we forgot. For this one, it's long, but okay, so when you have near 7 minutes as your like freaking length of a song, one of two things happens. It's either really good or it's really boring. And this one was really good. I liked it. I have like very little bad to say about it. Lyrically, it's an interesting, all over the place criticism of like that live fast, die young kind of culture where like you're living to get high. You can believe this like almost fountain of youth exists in whatever lifestyle you're chasing. Like I just picture like the guys who are my age who are still acting like they're 20, you know? And then it kind of flips as the song progresses from a little more of the allure to the consequences, and I appreciate what it's going for. On the other hand, it's still 7 minutes long, and it's like a heavy commitment. I listened to it twice in a row this morning, just to make sure, like, back to back, 13-ish minutes straight of this track.
Right.
And I still give it a 4.5 on 5, because it's fucking great. Like, it is solid. It is like, it's one of those tracks where it changes a lot as you go. And it doesn't, like, it's not bad. It's not like anything feels out of place. It's like even, like, the violins at the end make sense. The little weird parts in the middle make sense. And it's just, they're excellent at understanding that our entire generation has, like, ADD to a degree.
Yeah.
And putting in the right little things every 2 or 3 lines so that it's never a static experience.
Right.
And this is transparent in most of their songs. It's not just unique here, but this song is almost like drastically different things to keep you hooked. But they're really good at that. And I appreciate that when your average track length is over friggin' 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm now going to say a lot of the things you just said, phrased slightly differently. I mean, you guys know that I tend to shit on songs. I'm sorry. I felt like that was appropriate. I tend to do that on songs that are lengthy, right? But this one really is the exception to the rule. It really, really, really merited its length. It starts off super heavy and super grimy, and then it goes into this almost like Depeche Mode, kind of like 80s dance vibe, and then it just keeps building and building, and it's never boring. They're always adding these. The devil is in the details, and I think that cliche really fits this album to a T.
Especially with the devil on the cover.
Especially with the devil on the cover.
Being an obvious detail.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome, buddy.
Now I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
No, but and the violin at the end just gives it this really merited sense of scale. Like, this song is a monster, and it's a monster all the way through, and you feel so satisfied when it's finished. Like, you've just heard just a really well composed, not fitting any format piece of music that just transcends. Because you said the violins reminded you of the '90s, and I said I thought it was very modern in terms of production, in terms of
Because I just like the way that they would have a song following a structure and then near the end of it break it up with almost like a bridge of a completely obscure sound.
Yeah.
Something like a violins that's just so left field that it changes the tone of the song before flowing into the final chorusy thing, which is very reminiscent of what came right before the violins.
And it's not like it feels out of place.
Not at all.
It feels perfectly in tune with the rest of the song, and it comes in and you're not like, whoa, you're like, oh,
yeah,
that just makes it a great song better.
Yeah,
and it's those little details that just make this record and this band stand above.
Like
so
I've
many
heard
others.
it executed poorly, where it just feels like it goes somewhere else, and I was impressed. I give this a 4.5. It's not a 5, mostly because I do feel it could have been a bit shorter. Like I know that they did an extremely well here with their 6:41 minute count, and like everything we said is like, wow, it's perfect, but it's still a really long song. It's got a bit of a repetitious feel to the way the verses are delivered, and they could have maybe condensed it a bit, and I would have liked it a little bit more. But considering what it is, it's pretty damn near perfect.
I'm still giving it a 5. 5's all around. Just, you get a 5, and you get a 5, and you get a 5.
That's all right.
Do it.
I don't know. I get it. Like, I understand it, but I don't know. I still don't, like... I'm not going to be able to listen to this album every day all the time. Like, you might be able to put this on over and over and over again because it's, like, that sound you really fucking like.
Again, I fanboy hard over Queens of the Stone Age.
But I'm, like, in a different place. I'm more like, okay, this is surprisingly excellent considering a lot of the other complicated music I've heard this year. I want to hear more. I want to understand it better, but, you know, there's all that other stuff I do actually like more than I like this sound that's kind of in that little filter or algorithm that helps me calculate my grade. Anyway, Hideaway is the next track, and, yeah, we'll go on to that one. So we go from like really awesome over-the-top music to what I would say is one of the only songs that I can call kind of boring on this album. It's well made. It's like a darker romantic table song. Like, I get it. I get what he's trying to do with it, and I get that in terms of like the flow of this album. I like more where it's placed on this album than I like the actual song. Right?
Okay.
Like, it's supposed to be this track at this point based on the flow so far. It's supposed to be a calmer one because you know that what's about to come is going to be elaborate and big.
I cannot wait.
And in this, it's just that I don't feel the depth as much. I don't feel the passion as much. I feel like it's almost like they're deliberately holding back to give the effect of this song, and it didn't sit as well with me.
I don't want to call this song boring because it's not. That's not fair. I still think that it's something that if it came on, most people could jam to. Like it's
excellent background noise.
Yes, this is the only song on this record that I can say feels a little bit like Queens of the Stone Age by numbers.
Okay.
In so much as you can go back and find some of the other, I guess, more forgettable tracks on some of their older albums and put it together with this one, and this one is in that category. I still really do like a lot of the vocals. I always love his harmonies. I do love the overall vibe. I love the rhythm. The rhythm is very stop and start. It's still a song that you can talk about more than a throwaway track on another album. Agreed. If that makes any sense. So this one's still it's going to be the lowest grade I'm giving, but it's still a 4.
I give it a 4 too. I want to say that as much as just to touch on that point, when you get to like this far into a review, often for those who might be new here, you tend to be like you're comparing against the album at this point. So it's a 4 against regular music because the worst song Queens of the Stone Age would write might be better than the best song many other bands could achieve.
Right. And also, just to add to that, this far into a career, I think this is album number 7.
Okay.
Or album number 8. And then to be this far into the album and have the first song that's like,
Oh, wow. I wasn't as much. There was another one I didn't
there was right
myself,
but for us to both agree on that this one was and it's song number 7 of a 9-track album of album number 7 or 8. I don't remember of this band's ridiculously long career.
Let's say that I'm happy this was not a 6.5-minute track.
Fair enough, but I still think it's an impressive
Like, again, the music is all well made. Everything is really well done. But I can tell you that this one has far less life than all the other songs we've heard.
Fair enough. Now,
You're saying,
Evil has landed.
yeah, he's like, fuck that one. I mean, the song is elaborate. It has much to it. It is very. It makes me think of like a complicated Led Zeppelin song, and that's not a bad thing. But it makes me think of my dad, which makes me kind of like it a little less unfairly. And so I apologize to everyone
Daddy
for this track.
issues.
It's totally fine. It makes you an interesting person, but it makes it harder to really get into the field.
Stereotype.
It's fine. There's like 16 personality types. Good luck falling outside of that spectrum.
I am number 17.
There you go. But for real, like, this song is everything great and epic for, like, the pre-climax, right? Like, if you were thinking about this album as a movie, this is the giant action scene. This is the part where everything, like, I guess it's supposed to be the best song on the album in their heads, too, right? Like, that's what they're going for here. It's got more to it from a musical front than I think any other track on the album. It's got segues and stuff. It's got really whatever. My absolute favorite part is that last minute where it just like flips into like more of that fast punky feel of, like,
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. But the lyrics are kind of like interesting. I want to just talk about how if you were to just listen to the lyrics and not know the name of the song, it almost has a very different tone than when you think about the name of the song, because it just kind of feels like you're living life to the fullest and everything's good and da 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 da. But then you look at the name and it's The Evil Has Landed, which kind of adds this extra layer to the track, almost making it feel like this is more about temptation or dark things happening. And that was cool. I genuinely don't see a lot of times where the title of the song actually creates the context for the message in such an interesting way. But I think that was another fun part of this track. But I'll let you rave about it now so that we don't like get destroyed here.
This is... Look, I heard this song, and I got a boner right away. I'm sorry. I'm not even ashamed to admit that. Like, this is my favorite track on this album, and probably my favorite song this year, released by anyone. Like,
Okay.
I love it that much. It's the harmony between the close and the close, and the way they vibe together, and it's just come close. Like, 2 words make this one of the strongest hooks that I've heard this year. And you look back, and at the same point on Like Clockwork was I Appear Missing, and both songs are just as grandiose, but this one is so much meaner, and the riff it comes in with those scratches after that almost silent vocal intro, which is something that you can't say a lot, right? Like, it's a vocal intro, but it's very quiet and very deliberate, and then it just picks up and whips you around with that riff, which I guess you thought sounded like Led Zeppelin a little bit. Yeah. Very blues rock, very blues
But
metal.
it's not, even the structuring of the song, because like I'm not talking like a Stairway to Heaven, but like I've heard a lot of their albums. They have that general level of complexity and growth to a song, and
I mean, something like Black Dog, I could hear being comparable to this song. Classic track. But yeah, and the way this song evolves, and the way that it just naturally changes from it goes from the stark, very cold harmonies in the intro to that riff that whips you around to a very very dancey kind of like funk rock kind of verse, and then it brings it back around, and it goes into that, and the bass all over this song is just moving and noodling away, and like little solo rips here and there, and then it goes, and then the way it outshows in that really classic Queens of the Stone Age way, almost like something that would have happened on Songs for the Deaf. Okay. Or like Rated R. And just everything. I give this song a 6 on 5. I'm sorry. I'm going above and beyond. It's a little ridiculous, but this one gets 110%. It's so perfect.
I give it a 4.
You give it a 4. This is everything that I want in a Queens of the Stone Age track.
I mean, I feel like I get where you're coming from, and I don't even disagree with the angle. Like, in the realm of what it is, it's excellent. It's just then it's in that same realm, and so I admit this entire track. Don't take my opinion that seriously. I'm being a little pissy about it for no good reason, but it's a really excellent rock song all around. Like, it really captures the potential of the genre, if you want to put it like that, in like a very classic way. This doesn't feel like, it feels almost like a rebranding of a throwback in terms of like time. Like, it's taking old sounds and polishing them up for how they could have sounded if they were originally written in this world. And I can appreciate that artistic merit, and it's all brilliant and stuff, whatever.
For me, what it really sounds like is, it sounds like it's taking what a lot of the blues rock revivalists like Black Keys, or like Sheepdogs, or like Royal Blood, a lot of what those bands could do potentially, and just bringing it to that next level that they haven't really accomplished yet.
So you're
and I'm not shitting on any of those bands. I love those bands, but this is just another example of how Queens of the Stone Age take a modern kind of trend and just revamp it, bring it out in their style, and take it to that next level.
So if this was hip-hop, what you'd be saying is they bodied those dudes and made them all victims of circumstances.
Good. Villains of circumstance. You got the title wrong, but...
Whatever, shut up. Is it villains?
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's the title track.
Pun is done. In one more subscriber, my company's YouTube account hits 1,000, and I get to see what it looks like when we get to 1,000, because I know you level up.
How does it work to withdraw the money that you're making?
Gotta make $100.
And how does it work?
It goes to my AdSense account.
Do you just automatically start making ad cash when your videos have enough views to...
When you get to 10,000 views for the channel, you can submit to be a partner, and then you turn it on.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took freaking almost 6 months to get to 10,000. Now we're at 26. It's like, okay, or 27.
27,000 channel views? Okay.
But it's interesting, right? Eminem's 15% of the channel views. Eminem, one video.
Yeah.
It'll get there, though. Like, maybe this one freaking
And do you
hits.
get an email like they're like, you now have this many views, you are eligible? No.
Well, no, you gotta be a little proactive with it.
Okay.
I mean, but if you have a YouTube channel, you're just aware of this kind of stuff. You will always know, if you're managing a YouTube channel, how many views and how many subscribers you have until it gets too big to manage. You'll know every time you get a subscriber until it gets too big to manage. Like, I know it was at 266 yesterday, 265 the day before. I know it went up to 266 and then fell to 265. I know that, it's been a very slow climb since we got to 250. It took far longer to get to 265 than I would have liked. I was hopeful for it by the end of 2 weekends ago. But I need to take into consideration it's also back to school. I bet most people are busy this last couple of weeks.
That's right, people are going back to school.
Which is going to be good for us in a week or two once they're all settled, and not so good now while they're all doing it, because I bet most people that are watching us are either office employees or students.
When did the high school start first, right? University start first?
University starts in September. High school starts this last week. Sage Up will start also this week. Like the week that just passed, Sage Up started. Okay, you ready?
Skip ahead a little bit. Okay.
This is another track where I feel like the placement of this song is almost more impressive than the actual song itself. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's an amazingly super duper great track, but what it did for me is it took me from the higher energy, kind of like this album works you up a bit. Like, you can't just listen to this album and not go somewhere, right? And
right.
That's a good album.
Yeah.
And this album takes you from that place you were, and it brings you back down to reality, which I think is the absolute purpose of an album closer. It's to go and take you off of this trip that you're on and make it, like, solid. And it's not pretentious like the Infinity Loop, like the Arcade Fire tried to do. Mm-hmm. It's pretty smooth. It's like...
I didn't need a reminder of that.
So it's like an eerie kind of like... I think it's a breakup song of sorts, and like just reminiscent of how, like, due to the circumstance, things just worked out like this, and you just kind of like, you almost feel like him thinking back and wishing and longing for something that's no longer there. And I mean, the mood is there, but yo, this track was just too long. Like, like we've had a few 6-minute tracks, like, and you've already pulled it off successfully a couple of times. Don't get me wrong, but this one is really like, I think they were trying to create that like really long, really slow, intense feel to bring you across the spectrum and make your heartstrings all chugged on and stuff. But like by about 4 minutes in, I'm not feeling it as much because there's still a whole bunch of song left, and this one doesn't have the same level of skill in terms of diversity and keeping me hooked. I feel like it's almost relying too much that I'm going to be in the right mood to want to feel this way as opposed to keeping me there. And so I give it a 4. It's an okay song. It's as good musicians as everything else. Like, all of the stuff they're supposed to do is good. The lyrics are fine, but it's not amazing. It just feels more like it's fine. Like, it serves its role as the closer, in my opinion.
I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
I feel like it really does work as a denouement, as it were, like a falling action, like a
Okay.
kind of like rolling out the end of the, because it does bring the energy down effectively. I think it's not fair because I love that last track so much, and there's no way that this one is going to measure up, right? But what I found myself feeling after this, and I know it's a long record, but rarely do I find myself at the last song and wishing there was another one. But I wouldn't have minded if there was another track after this one that served as the album closer. And I really do like this track. I think the beginning is kind of haunting. I think where they take it, I don't have any real suggestions of where they could have gone, but it feels like it's almost 2 songs stapled together, which is it's a little bit jarring, and it's very calm. It's calm all the way through, but I feel like it's not the right kind of calm that ends the song. But again, really, really interesting songwriting, really, really interesting melodies. Another time where there's a little bit more of a Middle Eastern vibe sneaking its way in there. I'm still giving it a 4.5. I think it's still a great track, and it is a great album closer. It's just I felt myself wanting more, and again, that's good. If a song and an album leaves you feeling like you wanting more, that is the intention, right? Because then you're gonna go back and listen to it again and again, and this is the kind of album that's you're gonna find new things. You're gonna find new things. You're gonna find new layers every time you listen to it. So, kudos to them for achieving that.
Yeah, I guess as an album, keep in mind, I didn't give a single mark under 4. I mean, I found criticisms because not every song was perfect, but like this album got a 4.33 for me. I don't know if metrically it's the highest grade I've given out, but this is one of the most impressive albums that I have listened to this year in terms of, as you said, living up to the hype.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they have that name, and unlike other bands, they live up to that name. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's excellent. I would recommend this if you've never listened to Queens of the Stone Age, because I don't know what their other albums are like, but I can tell you that if you've never listened to them and you like rock music, you are going to feel this album, feel something, and it's not going to be a waste of your time.
Yeah, I mean, I recommend this just like I recommend any Queens of the Stone Age album. They're all great. They are just batting 100, and it's so impressive this far into their career that they're still releasing more than solid albums. Just stellar pieces of music, compositionally, lyrically, in terms of marketing. They're still killing it with their marketing campaigns. In terms of visuals, the cover art is great. Their live show is probably... I would have liked to have
seen a video, like an actual music video, just to see what that would have been like, but there was none that we saw. If there was one, feel free to correct us and put it in the comments.
Check out the video for I Appear Missing.
All right.
Lead single from their last album. Super. It's a cartoon. It's gross. It's a little bit rated R, but it's really cool. If you like long, emotional rock songs, check that out. Anyway, I never calculate my grade like you do, but
right.
This one's got a 4.5 for me. Great album.
All right, man. I guess that's it for this week. Next week, there's something we don't know yet. We'll tell you.
We'll be
next
back.
week. And hope you liked the video. If you did, feel free to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're interested in the content. Let us know what you care about. At least if there's nothing interesting, we'll go find some classic albums, and we will get to more of those. So let us know what you care about seeing us review, what you would consider to be like a classic album.
Yeah, give us some suggestions, and maybe we'll take them into consideration-ish.
Well, I'll take them into far more consideration, I promise you that. Anyway, let us know what you think. Holler at us on the social medias. You can contact us below and check out some stuff. I make music. He makes music. He does other stuff. I do stuff. You can learn more about us. Anyway, yeah.
I like
Have a
that.
great week.
Have a great week, guys.
Peace.